Citicore REIT is shaping up to be the most interesting REIT offer this year. We already have 5 REITs in the stock market: A-REIT, DDMPR, PhilRT, RCR, and M-REIT, but Citicore REIT is built different. Alam niyo ba kung bakit? Hindi? C-REIT ka na? Citicore REIT will still generate income through property rentals. Pero unlike dun sa 5 REITs na nabanggit natin, which generate income through commercial office space leasing, CREIT leases solar power plants. Medyo mahaba yung discussion natin about this REIT kasi napakahaba ng prospectus, guys. Sobrang haba. Pinakamahabang prospectus na siya na nabasa ko. And tayo ko naman na i-filter out lang yung mga information na baka trivial pero mahalaga pala. Pero if gusto mo lang talaga marinig yung final thoughts ko, then click right here. The timestamp would be right here. Okay, so hindi naman sikreto na iba-iba yung investment considerations natin when deciding to invest in these REITs. Pero for me, for the office space REITs, the most important factors for me, of course, yung dividend rate, pero nandyan din yung tenant profile saka occupancy rate. Tenant profile, or specifically ano ba yung industry ng mga companies that occupy those office spaces. So posibleng POGO industry or BPO industry. Occupancy rate naman, or how much of the GLA is currently occupied and is currently generating income. So in terms of a solar power company naman, this will translate to tenants or lessees and availability rate. So tenants or lessees, super similar lang to sa tenant profiles ng mga office REITs. Pero I think dun sa solar power na industry, mas preferred gamitin yung term na lessee, kaya sunod na lang tayo.
Huwag kayo iiyak.
Availability rate naman, or what percentage of the day is it generating electricity. So for example, 100% yung availability rate, then 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nagde-generate siya ng electricity. Maraming factors that affect this metric. Posibleng natural causes such as bagyo, lindol, volcanic eruptions, anything caused by nature. Or pwede rin naman na man-made causes, for example, preventive maintenance or human error. Pero at the end of the day, the goal is to keep the availability rate as high as possible. Kasi dito nakadepende yung income ng tenant. And kung hindi na profitable yung tenant, then bababa yung chance na mag-renew sila ulit ng lease contract with Citicore REIT, which ultimately will be bad for us investors. The company was created primarily to own and invest in income-generating renewable energy real estate assets. Yung organization niya is unlike anything I've seen before kasi dalawa yung sponsor companies. The first sponsor is Citicore Renewable Energy Corporation or CREIT, which owns 83.3% of the company. And the second sponsor is Citicore Tarlac 1, which owns the remaining 16.7%. And after the IPO, the public will own 42.6% if over-allotment is not exercised and 49% naman if fully exercised yung over-allotment options. CREIT currently leases 5 properties. All of them are solar power plants that generate rental income. Pero later natin sila pag-usapan. As of the date of the prospectus, the combined capacity of the leased properties is 163 megawatts, which makes it the second largest solar power generator in the Philippines, only behind Singapore-based Vina Energy. The offer period has already started November 26 to December 3, 2021. And the tentative listing date is on December 13, 2021. For this REIT, meron 3 types of offer shares. Primary shares at 1.05 billion shares. Secondary shares naman at 1.74 billion shares. And then 418 million over allotment shares. The offer price will be up to 3.15 pesos and supposedly na-release na dapat yung final price pero wala pa sa PSE Edge hanggang ngayon. So update ko na lang kayo sa comment section. Okay, let's talk about numbers. Here's the net income of the company from 2017 to 2020. These numbers look good because they keep growing year after year pero hindi naman sobrang bilis. Ito naman yung income nila for the first 6 months of 2021. If we annualize 89 million pesos, this will exceed the net income for the full year 2020. Another interesting point is yung structure ng revenue nila kasi hindi siya kasing straightforward yung mga normal REITs. Citicore REIT earns revenue in 2 main ways. Yung una ay base revenue. This is guaranteed annual base rate payable on equal monthly installments. And yung second naman is percentage based. Quoting directly from the disclosure, a variable rental rate equivalent to 50% of the incremental gross revenue earned by the lessee from any excess of its actual energy generation for the current fiscal year over its base revenue. In other words, I have no idea. Hindi ko nasusubukan intindihin yan kasi hindi naman tayo concerned sa very specific minute details. Basta yung mahalaga lang is they receive a guaranteed base rate tapos a percentage of that base rate na nagbabago or nagfa-fluctuate depende sa maraming factors na specific lang sa kada property. And finally, assuming max price of 3.15%, the dividend yield for 2022 is projected to be 5.7% and then for 2023 naman, it's 6%. Okay, so let's talk about the properties and meron silang 5 properties na pinaparenta. I won't discuss everything pero I will highlight some parts. The first property is Clark Solar Power Plant and it is located in Pampanga. It is leased until September 2039 and the capacity is at 22.325 megawatts. Second is Armenia property in Tarlac City and it is leased until October 2046. The capacity is 8.84 megawatts. Third is Toledo property in Cebu and it is leased until 2041 with a capacity of 60 megawatts. Next naman ay Silay property in Negros Occidental. Leased siya until October 2040 and the capacity is at 25 megawatts. And yung last one is Dalaya property in Tarlac City with lease expiring on October 2040 and the capacity is 7.55 megawatts. In comparison to the commercial office space REITs, sobrang haba ng mga lease contracts ng mga solar power plant operators. Yung pinaka-closest na expiration date is 18 years from now. Grabe. And the furthest expiration naman is 25 years from now. Okay, so ito naman yung top 5 lessees or tenants plus the sector or industry and the percentage na na-contribute nila doon sa total revenue. And ito naman yung availability rates for the past years. I don't need to read every availability rate for the year, pero take note lang natin na it never dipped below 90% since 2017. And in relation to this, solar power plant operations have proven to be resilient even during the COVID-19 pandemic. Dahil sa temporary shutdown ng coal plants or uling due to quarantines and lockdowns, sinalo ng solar power plants yung demand, yung additional demand for power. Tuloy-tuloy lang yung operations and therefore sustained din yung revenue. As usual with any REIT, the proceeds from this IPO will not go directly to the REIT itself but instead mapupunta siya doon sa sponsor companies, si CREIT saka si Citicore Tarlac 1. The estimated net proceeds from the primary shares is 3.2 billion pesos. Gagamitin nila ito to purchase 2 additional properties. Yung una ay Bulacan property with 15 megawatts capacity and it will be leased to Citicore Bulacan for 25 years. And then yung second property is South Cotabato property with capacity of 6.23 megawatts. It will also be leased for 25 years to Citicore South Cotabato. Okay, so for secondary shares naman, the estimated net proceeds is 6.6 billion pesos. Tapos medyo na-trigger lang ako nung una kong nabasa yung intended use of proceeds. Ito, basahin natin. May invest the net proceeds in short-term liquid investments including but not limited to short-term government securities, bank deposits, and money market placements. Honestly, this is a concern for me and let me tell you why. If you are not yet familiar sa difference ng primary offer shares and secondary offer shares, yung primary ay fresh shares na specifically created for an IPO. Meron ng existing owners yung mga secondary shares, hindi na sila fresh, hindi na sila bago. Okay, so ano yung problema? Let's go back to the statement about the intended use of proceeds from the secondary shares. Guys, I'm not that smart, pero I understand that this means that they are just parking the money into short-term, relatively low-risk investments. Posibleng treasury bills or money market funds, I don't know, hindi nila dinisclose. They are doing this to acquire interest habang pinag-iisipan pa nila kung saan gagamitin yung capital. So kumbaga parang humiram lang sila ng pera from the public, from us, pero wala pang concrete plans from the sponsor's side on how this will benefit either the sponsor or the REIT mismo. Okay, so before we take this further, let me just remind you na hindi to investment advice and I will never recommend to buy, sell, hold, or avoid any stock or any investment. Personal interpretations ko lang to nung nabasa ko. Please do your due diligence. So now that you understand my concern, let's ask ourselves if it matters in the grand scheme of things. Kasi baka naman it doesn't matter how the sponsor company plans to use the proceeds. Kasi after all, separate entity pa rin naman si sponsor saka si si CREIT. Kung medyo matagal ka nang nanonood ng REIT IPO reviews natin, you'll know that 4 to 6% dividends are acceptable to me as long as fixed na yung mindset ko na I'm just investing in this because of the predictability factor. Predictability ng passive income. The other side of the coin is if I'm investing into Citicore REIT kasi I see it as a stock and aasa ako sa capital appreciation instead na sa dividends lang, wala po akong nabasang obvious indicator that the sponsor company is trying to accelerate the growth of Citicore REIT. Yes, mag-infuse sila ng 2 additional properties based on the intended use of proceeds from the primary offer shares, pero that's in the short term lang. How about the long-term plan? Ano sa tingin nyo guys? Nag-overthink lang ba ako? Let me know your thoughts kasi na-excite talaga ako when I first heard about this REIT na hindi lang about commercial office spaces. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!